folks, welcome back. Today I will be cooking with my all-time favorite vegetable. This here is a spaghetti squash. For those of you that have been following my adventures, you'll know that I fell in love with this spaghetti squash in the US. I have found it pretty difficult to locate throughout Australia. I'll put a link below of where I found this particular one, and if you do know where this is stocked in your state, feel free to share below as well so we can all have access to this delicious vegetable just here. The reason it's called spaghetti squash is you'll see as soon as it's cooked, it turns into a stringy texture almost like spaghetti. I will be preparing a vegan, gluten-free spaghetti squash boat. It's delicious, one of my all-time favorite meals. I've got a spaghetti squash, I've got a bunch of asparagus that I've just chopped up into quarters, some pine nuts there that I will be roasting in a pan a bit later. That's about 2 tablespoons worth there. 250 grams of green beans that I've just taken the top and bottom off and then halved. 1 can of drained chickpeas. 1 bunch of broccolini that I've simply just halved. I've got 1 capsicum here, which is, I'd say, medium in size. And then over this side, I've got a couple of herbs and spices that I'll be running you through as I progress throughout this recipe. We'll start off with the spaghetti squash. In the background here, I've got my oven set at 200 Celsius and it's on fan forced. I've also got a pot up here with some water in there just starting to boil, and a pan for the pine nuts a bit later. With the spaghetti squash, you ideally want to cut it straight down the middle, just avoiding that top there, so choose to cut either side of that. It can be pretty tricky to cut a spaghetti squash open, so I strongly suggest using a sharp knife or having someone that is probably a little bit more comfortable with using a knife open this baby up. I should simply be able to open that up like that. And in the middle you can see there that there are a whole heap of seeds. So I'm simply going to use a spoon to spoon the middle out and get all those seeds and fibers out so it's just nice and clean for the roasting process. Okay, so that's what it looks like once it's cleaned on the inside. I have just prepared a tray here earlier with some parchment paper on it. I'm going to place these face up to begin with, grab some olive oil, add a dash of olive oil into the center, just like that. To season, I'll be using Herbamare, which is a delicious mix of spices. And now all I'm simply going to do is flip these upside down like that. The reason I put the oil in the center there is so when I flipped it upside down, the oil will actually spread out onto the parchment paper and ensure these babies don't stick. So now these are ready, I'm going to place them in the oven for 30 minutes. However, I am going to set a timer for 15 minutes and then for 30 minutes. The reason being is at the 15-minute mark, we need to add the chickpeas to this tray along with the broccolini and start boiling the other things back there on the pot as well. So I'll run you through that shortly. Woo! So that's the first 15 minutes up, folks. The spaghetti squash here, which I've just taken out of the oven for a split second. We are going to add the full capsicum to this tray. We are also going to add the broccolini. So what I might do, just to allow a bit more space on this tray, I'm just going to shift these spaghetti squash. They are hot, so please be careful. Off to the side a little, and then just place the broccolini on the tray as well next to it. Just going to pour some olive oil over the broccolini and the capsicum like that. And then in a separate tray here, I'm going to put all those chickpeas in there, along with a little bit of olive oil. And this is the secret ingredient, if you ask me. So the Keen's curry powder. And I'm just going to add a dash of that and then mix that through and make sure that all the chickpeas are covered. The next 15 minutes, we'll place these chickpeas along with this tray back in the oven. And I've got that pot up there with some boiling water and a dash of salt. And I'll be placing my asparagus and these green beans into that water just to start that boiling process. As I said, I'm simply going to place those green beans and asparagus into the boiling water over here. turn down to about a medium heat and boil those veggies for about 8 minutes. So while all the action is happening back there, I'm simply going to grab these pine nuts, place them in this pan without anything, and then place this on the stove top on a low heat and start roasting them. This will be a beautiful garnish for the overall dish. A really great tip for cooking nuts is ensuring that you're cooking them on a low heat, making sure that you're rotating them in the pan so they cook from all sides. And note that the nuts will actually continue to cook even when you've taken them off the stove because they get quite hot on the inside. So I suggest taking them off as soon as you start seeing them turn a tinge of brown. These beans are done here. I've just placed a strainer in the sink and I'm going to just drain out the water now. As you can see, I've just drained those there. We don't want them to cook any more than they have. We want them to remain nice and crispy and fresh. So to do that, I'm going to place cold running water just over the top to stop the cooking process. Ay caramba! This is what those beautiful chickpeas look like when they come out of the oven. They've got a bit of curry powder on them and they're a little bit crispy. And now this is when the magic really starts to come together. Next up, I'll be doing the sauce using the capsicum that I have roasted whole. But before I do that, I'm just gonna check in with these spaghetti squash and see where they're at. And to do so, I'm just gonna place a glove on because they are super duper hot, folks. As you pull your fork through it, it turns into spaghetti. Spaghetti squash. So that means it's ready. I'm gonna place these aside and take the capsicum on my chopping block just here, and I'll show you what to do with this next. Just need to grab my blender out. So that whole roasted pepper just here is really hot, so please be careful, but it starts to collapse as you take it out of the oven. So all I'm aiming to do now is just take out this green part here by simply just kind of cutting around it like this. Careful, it is a pocket of steam in there, so I don't want anyone burning themselves. Simply pop this out like so. So I've just got that part there, steaming hot as I said. Place this entire pepper, including the juices, into your blender. Then it's time to add your spices. So I've got salt, pepper, oregano, a bit of nutritional yeast. Now this stuff here tastes divine. I would probably say it's almost like a cross between chicken flavor and a cheesy flavor, but it's totally vegan. It's delicious on popcorn, soup, salads, etc. But I'm gonna place it in this sauce here, and it's really great on the B vitamin front. So it has B1, B2, B6, B9, and B12 in it. So I'm gonna add probably, I'd say close to a teaspoon. Now, because we've kept those fluids that were inside the capsicum in there, you shouldn't need much more fluid. If you do, I probably suggest adding a little bit of olive oil, but I'm not adding anything for now. Now we're gonna blend. So just there, I've got that sauce. And now I'm gonna clear up the bench top because this is when everything comes together. All components of the dish are now here on the table. This is when the magic really starts to happen. So I'm going to start combining everything together into this dish. I like to keep my dishes to a minimum. So this is just the one that I was boiling the beans in. I've taken out the water and they're here. And I'm going to place the beans and asparagus that were boiled into the pot, along with all the chickpeas, along with all the broccolini. Going to place those pine nuts in there as well, and I'm going to add this sauce to the mix as well. Now give all those beautiful ingredients a stir. That's what that's looking like all combined in there. Next up we'll be constructing the spaghetti squash boat, so I'm going to put that aside there. So I just have my spaghetti squash there on this plate. I'm going to continue pulling it out and making it into that stringy spaghetti squash texture. It's spaghetti, literally gluten-free vegan. Oh! I'm going to add a little bit more Herbamare into the mix. Just using a spoon, get the ingredients for the center in there. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Does anyone else smile about food this much? To seal the deal, I'm going to be using this Persian style macadamia feta, which is gluten-free. And I'm simply going to use my fingers to crumble this up on the top there. This here is the spaghetti squash boat, vegan, gluten-free, delicious, nutritious. I'm so excited for you guys to give spaghetti squash a whirl. If you have found a location throughout Australia that stocks this beauty, please add it to the comments below. And I would love for you guys to subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you are liking these videos. It's what keeps me going. And I look forward to any feedback that you have for future videos. Bye guys! I'll give you a nice close up there.